One long-studied analysis helps us understand the underlying strategies at work in almost any negotiation, and it's called the negotiator's dilemma. The negotiator's dilemma is based on an earlier problem called the prisoner's dilemma. In this scenario, two prisoners are isolated from each other and must decide whether to confess to their captors or to keep quiet. If one prisoner confesses and the other does not, the confessor gets freedom and the other prisoner gets an additional 20 years in jail. However, if both confess, each of them will get an additional 10 years in jail. Finally, if both decide not to confess, each will get an additional 5 years, however, will be of hard labor. Each prisoner must choose between two options, but must do so in a vacuum without knowing what the other's decision is and whether or not his strategy is the best one for his best personal gain. And this is what's called the negotiator's dilemma, the tension between going in with a cooperative mindset or going in with a competitive mindset. There are basically 4 outcomes from this type of tension. The best case scenario from a unilateral view is that you go in with a competitive strategy and the other side approaches the dispute with a cooperative strategy. You are more likely to gain more in that scenario. The second outcome is that both sides come in with a cooperative mindset. This usually results in both parties receiving some of what they are seeking, or perhaps coming up with options that are even better than what they intended to get, or at least more satisfactory to both sides, and certainly a result that preserves the relationship. The next outcome is going farther down the list, where both sides come in with a competitive mindset. This often leads to a very difficult negotiation, which can be protracted and expensive because the parties keep going around in circles demanding resolutions that only address their needs and their positions, or it can escalate very quickly to one side walking out. And the worst case scenario from a unilateral standpoint is that you go in with a cooperative mindset and the other side comes in with a competitive mindset. It's the opposite of the best case scenario. The other side is probably going to quickly be able to take advantage of your cooperation and receive more gain from you, and you may end up losing entirely. Some theorists put forth that using principled negotiation lessens this tension or the likelihood of the lesser two outcomes. If you know your adversary, you can usually prepare better and avoid the unknown or being surprised. Others might argue that someone skilled in negotiation might use the knowledge of this tension to their advantage and try to throw someone off their game. If they're known to be cooperative, that's going to be the expectation. The other side may come in with a more cooperative mindset, yet this party trying to game the system will come in being very competitive. However, really skilled negotiators, and particularly where there's a lot at stake, either money-wise or time-wise, good negotiators are not going to use that kind of get-rich-quick strategy because it's going to destroy trust for the rest of that negotiation or future negotiations, and the person's generally going to get a reputation for someone who you don't want to be in the room with, and that they can't be trusted to keep their word, and they're not at all interested in mutually satisfactory results. In one of this week's readings, the theory of conditional principled negotiation is discussed. This modifies the both sides fully cooperative approach and considers how to use the tension in a productive manner, recognizing that most disputes require that parties be adaptive, not only when they start negotiations, but as they go through negotiations. Please take a look at this additional reading on conditional principled negotiation.